So my name is Lenny Noisette. I am the program director for the Criminal Justice Fund at the Open Society Foundations. So thank you, Martin. Thank you, Danielle, Nick, and thank you, Tumblr, for this wonderful space. And thank all of you for participating in today's set of conversations about the work you and others across the country are doing to make our communities safe while reducing our nation's excessive and counterproductive reliance on incarceration. The Open Society Foundations are proud to partner with the Ford Foundation in supporting the work of the Vera Institute and of Common Justice and in co-hosting this important event. And it's really an honor for me to be here with you today. The Open Society Foundations has prioritized reducing incarceration in the United States for now over some 20 years. And in 2013, inspired by the progress we were seeing, but recognizing the enormity of the issue, we embarked on a set of strategies aimed at an ambitious goal of cutting the U.S. incarceration by 50% in 10 years. Now, we've long understood that significant incarceration reduction will require helping the field build the capacity to respond to the question of how to deal with serious crime and violence, if not by ever harsher punishment. Through our Soros Justice Fellowships program, we have supported individuals to develop and advance strategies for addressing violence in our communities without reliance on prison and punishment, including some of whom you will hear from today. Dorothy Johnson Spate, who's mobilizing women who are impacted by homicide and who seek to change our overly punitive responses to violence and crime. Marlon Peterson, who I saw, who is advocating for bold measures to end gun violence and increase community safety here in New York City through the creation of zones where no one will need to carry a gun. And Sujatha Baliga, who has worked to help communities adopt restorative justice practices to decrease reliance on incarceration and other forms of punishment. We've also invested in lifting up perspectives and voices of crime survivors through support for Californians for Safety and Justice, Partnership for Safety and Justice in Oregon, and more recently, Alliance for Safety and Justice to help expand such work nationally. We've long supported Equal Justice USA to do that work in the death penalty sphere, and now they're expanding that work to criminal justice reform more broadly. So our hope is that today's conference will build on existing strength and energy and help better position us to build the political will necessary for advancing bolder reforms. You know, before joining OSF, I was a public defender here in the city for many years. And working in a community-based defender office in Harlem, I learned firsthand what Danielle says in her report, that crime and violence need to be understood and responded to in the various contexts in which they occur. When complaining witnesses in domestic violence cases came to our office for help, knowing that we were defending the individual who had caused them harm, it taught me how little the system did to respond to their real needs. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak with a former client who was recently released from prison after 18 years for an assault conviction he received when he himself was 18 years old. And I was proud that he told me he had just been admitted to John Day College, but I was saddened by how much his potential had been interrupted in the name of safety and justice. And I was angered by the fact that had he not been black and from Harlem, his fate most certainly would have been different. So I'm excited about the vision of justice that we will discuss here today. One that centers the perspective and the needs of survivors, one that focuses on real and meaningful accountability, a system that promotes responses that truly make individuals and communities safe, and one that does all of this with a keen commitment to racial equity. So to kick us off, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Danielle Red, a woman for many of you who needs no introduction. Danielle envisioned, launched, and directs Common Justice. She leads the project's efforts locally and nationally to develop and advance practical and groundbreaking solutions to violence that advance racial equity, meet the needs of those harmed, and do not rely on incarceration. She is presented at the Aspen Ideas Festival, the Atlantic Magazine Summit on Race and Justice, and the Bipartisan Summit on Criminal Justice Reform. She's the author of The Other Side of Harm, Addressing Disparities in Our Responses to Violence and of Accounting for Violence, How to Increase Safety and Reduce Our Failed Reliance on Incarceration. She is among the leaders who are pushing us and our movement to take on the question of violence, and it's through her leadership and vision that we are all here today. So Danielle.